shut up. We all know what you're trying to do.
I'm trying to get rid of someone no one likes.
Right. So disappear then.
This isn't about me. Look, Ebony is a snake. If we just leave her be, she'll poison us all. Come on, Celine. This isn't about what you think of me. This is for the tribe.
I don't like her. I don't even trust her, but I trust Bray. And he says we need her to keep the tribe safe. So we keep an eye on her, that's all. Besides, what's the alternative?
So welcome to Series 2, Episode 18 of Conversation on Eagle Mountain, a podcast about the tribe. I'm your host, Lance, and joining me on the podcast panel today is Liz.
Hello.
Sabine.
Hi.
And Maggie.
Hi.
With episode notes done by Matt and myself. So Series 2, Episode 18, the screenplay was done by Tony Osborne. It was directed by Costa Boats. And the episode synopsis was read out by Maggie.
Ebony takes advantage of her new position to beef up security during the antidote clinics, which doesn't go down well with some members of the tribe. Kaisan's plans for the next phase of the antidote rollout cause concern, and Ryan reveals Lex's troubled past to Celine.
Before we begin, obviously, what I posted in chat earlier, there were some weird camera shots in this episode. One in particular really stood out for me was the shot with Lex and Danny.
I was wondering if that's what you were referring to, because at first I was like, and then I'm like, okay, I see it now.
Did anyone else notice it or see it, or just, was it just me? It just kind of stood out during this rewatch.
After you pointed it out, yes. Before that, nope.
Yeah. Because I don't really pay that much attention to where Danny's whereabouts are. I'm just, she exists, whatever. So I guess I wasn't really focusing on her in the shot, But now that you've mentioned it, it is pretty odd.
That's what you meant. I was like, why is he disappointed in Costa? But now I'm looking at the framing of that shot. That is disappointing cinematography for him.
Yeah, we're not used to that.
Yeah, that's why it stood out. It's odd. I mean, I know that the tribe gets quite sexualized a little bit later on, but yeah, this is odd.
Yeah, and it definitely could have been, the angle could have been framed differently too. It didn't have to be that, right there.
Well, now that you bring that up, I'm curious. I've been wondering, we talked about the production and how they really pick up the pace in season 2, and I wondered just how these kids are being run ragged working on this show. And then, of course, we have to think about all the pickup shots that they're trying to get and trying to keep that continuity. And I'm thinking the second unit probably really had their hands full trying to get these shots for them. And something tells me, there's something about this episode that tells me they didn't get enough coverage. I don't know what went wrong, but there's something uninspired about the direction and the filming. It's almost like they're just getting what they can get. That's interesting. Costa Boats and so we're like, how dare you?
How dare you assume such?
No, but really, if you're listening, we want to know.
It's because we respect your work, Costa. Yeah. That's all.
Phrase until now. Explain.
Just to clarify to listeners, there's a particular camera shot angle used where you just see Danny's chest and Lex in the background. And this is quite obvious.
It's very odd.
Then at some point it looks like that's what he's staring at.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I mean. It could have been framed so differently, just shot at a different angle, even just a foot to the left, and it would have looked entirely different.
And we only say this because Costa is such a good, intuitive director and usually takes some of the most beautiful and creative shots we get. So it's noticeable when he's having an off day, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's not an inspiring screenplay, this episode, either. Just saying.
It's something.
It exists.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised because this is the first time that I've heard of Tony Osborne, and obviously he's in charge of this flashback, which is quite surprising. But I'm not a fan of the flashback itself, but yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. Okay, so the episode itself opens with Ebony going into full-on security mode ahead of the day's antidote clinic. However, things don't go according to plan when a problem with the radios leads to Jack opening the grill sooner than ordered. With Chloe and Patsy worried about Ebony's reaction, Jack reassures them that he will take full responsibility for the decision. So first question, panel, what did you make of Ebony's frenzied ramp up of security and her displays of power throughout this whole episode?
Not surprised by it.
She is trying too
I mean,
hard.
yeah, she absolutely is trying to, but it's not a surprise in the least bit. You give Ebony a
No.
little bit of leeway, and she's gonna go as far as she can until you pull her back.
It's definitely a perfect example of what Ebony is as a leader. It's competence. They're making it very clear how competent Ebony is at this job. I think that's important because she's not doing her job wrong. She's doing everything right. She's getting things done. She's protecting them all. She's doing what she's supposed to do. But so there's that, and that's good. It's important for us to see that Bray wasn't wrong in that sense, that Ebony could do this job. And then you have to add on this second element to it, though. She's a nightmare. She's a horrible person. She treats people like garbage. And that's the conflict. Do you want, like, when you're thinking about the security of your home, do you want someone who's super nice but really bad at their job? Or do you want someone who's great at their job, even if they're not a people person? And since that's a conflict in this episode, I thought it was really smart that they set this up. They show very clearly that Ebony takes her job seriously. She gets things done, and yet nobody likes her. And that's perfect for what's going to be coming up later in the episode, you know? So that's what I see. Show someone who's brilliant at her job, but God, just don't talk to human beings. You suck at that.
Right. It definitely shows the contrast between leadership in her and Bray and how each of them do things differently. Bray says he's going to get things done, but Ebony, she does things.
Mm-hmm.
She always has, when she says she's going to do it, she does it.
Yep. She's not here to be your friend. She's here to keep you safe.
And she knows that, like she has no interest in being friends with these people anyway. And this just gives her even more reason, to continue to just be Ebony. And it's perfect.
And let's not forget, she's not used to people even attempting to be friendly to her. She's just used to ordering people around.
Right. She's
all
just
the time
being afraid of her.
Yeah. And that's what she's always used.
Yeah.
The more afraid they are, the more likely they're to do her bidding.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you get the job done.
Yep. She's always ran things on fear. That's for sure. Whereas, Bray relies on just everybody apparently doing everything for him now.
He just gets too concerned with, do people like me?
Yes.
Yes. Like, that doesn't matter when you're trying to get the job done sometimes. And granted, yes, likability is important. Mm-hmm. You gotta like your leader, you gotta trust him and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But he gets more concerned with being liked than getting the job done. And this is Ebony. She's the other end of the extreme. And you could argue that Amber was smack dab in the middle of these two thoughts.
Say the same thing. Mm-hmm. So, like, she is literally right there in the middle, whereas she is soft enough to understand where she needs to, be gentle and use child hands, kid gloves, right? And then she knows when she needs to stand her ground and when she needs to make a decision and get things done.
Yeah.
I think it is what Bray needs right now, the yin to his yang, something completely different. Together, they make that whole package,
It's just a great illustration that it's easy enough to say you want to be a leader, but do you understand what it takes to be a good leader? It's not an easy job. It's not fun, It's a really tough job.
Out. And I think he learned, or he's figured that out. Like, at this point, he's realized being a leader isn't fun. He really did not want this job, But in the beginning, he's like, maybe I can do it. No, you can't do it without help. And he's not letting anybody help him.
And it's nice for the audience, too, who may, the viewer is thinking, oh, well, I think this person should be leader. Mm-hmm. And the show is trying to illustrate that. Are you really thinking about the different forms of leadership? It's not just as simple as putting the person you like the most in that leadership position. Right. You may not like Ebony, but she is getting the job done. She's good at what she does. So there's that to consider. Or you may really love Bray, but he sucks at the job. And these are the things you have to consider. Like, it's not about just putting your favorite person in this position and thinking they can do it.
And you have Danny, too, who runs by the law, the rule of the book, right? She's a leader of the law, if you will. Everything is by the book, whatever. And you got the three different options, but the only one that's doing anything or getting anything done is the worst of the three.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And, at this point, she has this leverage. She feels like she has over them, right? She knows the antidote. What else does she really she could just pick up and leave. Like, that's it. She doesn't have to do this. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing she's still doing it, because she still is, she just wants the control, right? With the Mallrats name, she's got the control. She knows if she were to go out on her own, who's going to come to her or anything, right?
Yeah.
She's got to keep that control with the Mallrats, and she's just weaseling her way up there, and here she is now.
It's almost like she figured out what Bray didn't figure out. That, yeah, she could take the antidote someplace else, but what good would it be if people weren't going to come to her and pay for it?
Yep. But she could still use it as a threat.
But is that all that she's after? She doesn't want to be alone, and if she's with the Mallrats, no matter how mean she is to them, she's not alone. She's not on her own.
That's true.
What does Ebony want? Ebony wants to be in control of the most powerful outfit out there. That's what it comes down to.
That's the Mallrats.
And right now, she recognizes that, yeah, she could take her antidote formula someplace else and build up. But again, the Mallrats are giving it away for free, so why would anyone go to her? She's not going to be able to build up that power base. I think the reality hit her that, no, I won't be able to do it. Even if I have this antidote formula, I'm not going to be able to just get people to come to me or choose me over the Mallrats. Staying here and taking over these Mallrats and reshaping them would be easier.
Yeah, there's that too.
Do you think this is like her first day in leadership? Do you think she went overboard a little bit?
Maybe.
Because we obviously, apart from all the arguments and stuff, we see like that raw display of power where she gets the militia to do this tribal dance to frighten everybody. Like, what did you make of that?
It's of overcompensation. Yeah, definitely.
It's really, kind of similar to what she did when Zoot first died, that display of power as the priestess, right, in front of everybody. She just wants them to know she's there, and that they are there, and they're not going anywhere.
Ebony does strike me as someone who had to spend much of her youth proving herself. And I'm not going to go into who I think she was trying to prove herself to, but she was proving herself a lot growing up. And this has just become second nature to her, to constantly prove herself that somebody's watching, someone is judging you. And so Ebony is always right there, ready to show, I'm so good at this. I'm great at this. You can't do this without me. She's always performing all the time.
Goes to her, that, her reputation. She's always got to have that self-image and that image that everybody else sees her as, even if it's not who she really is. She has to play this part, and this is all part of it.
It's like if you got the job, you start a job somewhere, and there was a competition for who was going to get the, management position. Okay, you're not the most popular person at your job, but you are competent. You are good at what you do, but nobody likes you, and they resent the fact that you got picked to be manager. That first day you got to go out there, you are going to overcompensate to prove you were fairly given the position.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's all that's going to be on your mind the whole time. You're going to know that nobody wanted me to have this position, so I have to prove I deserve to be here.
Yep.
And you're going to end up losing your mind sometimes.
It was a little bit much. It was a little bit much because it kind of was like, whoa, that's what she's doing. Wasn't expecting it. But then when you break down the character and who she is, and it's like, okay, that makes sense for her.
Everybody's talking behind your back in the break room. And talking about how, she only got this job because she's the boss's daughter or something like that. You know what I mean? That's what's going on all day long. So you're just like, I'm going to prove to these mofos that I deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And that leads onto the shout out with Jack.
You stupid little moron. Do you know what could have happened today because of you? It wasn't just him. Shut up.
I made a decision. It was wrong. I'm sorry.
You don't make decisions. You obey my orders. You got that? You're horrible. We couldn't hear your stupid orders.
Leave it, Chloe. Yeah, I've got that.
You better start growing up, Jack. Fast. Because we don't have room for little boys around here.
What do you think? Do you side with Ellie that Jack should have stood up for himself more?
Yes, I do. Because I really do feel like he should have in this moment. He made a mistake, but Ebony's a bit much. And I think it goes back to what Liz was saying, that first day. So she has to come down hard on the person that made the mistake to show an example to everybody else, Jack could have stood up for himself, because what is she going to do? What is Ebony going to really do to him? I mean, really, what can she do to him? What is anybody going to allow her to do to him? nothing. He's terrified of her, and we see that later in the show too. He is absolutely terrified of Ebony.
Mhm.
He is. Yeah, I often forget just how scared of her he is.
And what is it? Season 3? You see it, like it's bad.
Yeah, and I always wondered because I don't really think there was any point in him standing up to her.
Yeah.
It was nice enough that he told the girls, "Look, I'll take responsibility, so they don't have to face her rat." But yeah, he knows what he did wasn't the most practical thing. So Jack's a practical guy. He'll just figure out that this is the only way he can go.
Yeah.
Like, get it over with. Yeah, sorry, I was stupid. Okay, and next thing.
And how bad did he really think she was going to react?
It's just a little bit weird because obviously Jack will usually defend himself even a little bit. Like he'll explain, oh, the radio wasn't working, or this or that, or who. But here he just meekly like, yep, that's it. I did it.
Maybe Ellie broke him over the last few days. I don't know. And he's like, I am so tired of women yelling at me.
He just doesn't want to be bothered with it. The easiest way to get away from Ebony
just be like,
is
okay,
to just say she's right.
Yeah, you're right. That is true.
And get it over with.
And Jack is a practical man. You're right.
I do like the fact that Jack could have made an argument. There was a fair argument to make for, Ebony blaming him for this, because the truth is, I don't feel like he was at fault. Ebony, your job, first of all, is to make sure that all of your underlings can communicate with you clearly. You did not double check these walkie-talkies to make sure he would even be able to hear you. So you are at fault, Ebony.
But who's in charge of those walkie-talkies?
No, my point is she didn't double check to make sure those walkie-talkies would work. At the end of the day, the buck stops with her. She's at the top of that pyramid. But again, I get that she's got to, enforce her rule and make it clear I won't let that happen again. So I'm just saying Jack had an argument he could have made. Yeah. And the old Jack would have certainly made it because the old Jack never wanted to take any responsibility for his mistakes. Right. I am wondering what shift has happened in Jack's mind since, yesterday that he is willing to take responsibility for, even though it's not entirely his fault, he mans up. He grows a pair of ovaries and says, okay, I take it. Thank you. I'm sorry. I won't make that mistake again, and lets it go. And I'm just like, who are you? What? Jack took criticism without popping a blood vessel or whatever.
Ellie broke him. She broke him.
What happened?
Or he's so in love that nothing bothers him anymore.
That's true. He's being super nice to the girls. I love how Chloe takes advantage of that. She's like, you're gonna fix my skates while we're at it since you're being so nice. Oh, Chloe, you scamp. But I just thought it was interesting that Jack is. Where did this maturity come from? When did you grow up, Jack? He's just like, I have an urge, and I've become a different man now. I have become.
Are you all right?
I'm fine. I just want to get out of here, that's all.
She's trying to protect us, Dal.
No. She thinks she can take Amber's place. But she can't. No one can.
Despite the threat of the Chosen, Dal decides to return to the farm, making it clear that he's not impressed with Ebony trying to take Amber's place. With the original Mormats farm team now reduced to just Dal, how do you all feel about his increasing isolation from the rest of the group? What do you make of that?
It's a good illustration because we are supposed to be showing that this, again, this is about the deterioration of this group while they're too busy trying to fix everybody else and their own home and their people. It's all falling apart. So I think this really just adds to that theme. The fact that they don't even notice that they're not really together. Everyone's off doing their own thing. Nobody feels a solidarity inside them all. So that works. I don't know how much it does for Dal's character. They don't do anything with it, but it's just one of those little things like, okay, that works with the theme. And, the fact that these guys aren't going to be on the same page when they're going to need each other the most. And it does play into season 3 when you consider the lack of trust everyone has for each other, the lack of communication when they need it. So, it works. I don't think it's anything unique or special, but...
I'm glad he mentioned Amber. It was nice to hear somebody
it's
say
like,
it.
He's seeing Ebony take charge, a strong female leading the tribe again, and he's like, that reminds me of Amber, but she's no Amber.
I just thought it was really interesting that we've always compared, Danny to Amber, blah, blah, blah. But I just think it says something that in the script, there's only a couple people who ever compare Danny and Amber, and it's almost like an offhand joke that they compare them. But I just think there's something very significant about Dal comparing Amber to Ebony, because I honestly feel like those two have way more in common.
Yeah.
And they don't get compared enough in the fandom when you really think about it. I don't think it's an accident that Dal, who's supposed to be the character who knew Amber the longest and was the closest to her, he doesn't see Danny as a replacement for Amber at all. It's Ebony he sees trying to take over. That's who he sees. And it says just how similar Amber and Ebony actually are. That even her quote-unquote best friend, he sees it enough that he's like, I need to get the frick out of here. I can't even be here. That's how much it bothers me. He never felt like that about Danny.
You're right.
I just thought that was interesting. I'm like, I don't think that was an accident. That's a little nugget put in there. Some writer.
I'm just trying to remember. Dal doesn't get much to do really in season 2, does he? He doesn't get.
No.
He gets to play farm boy.
But then again, Dal isn't even. He's not even a secondary character. He's more of a tertiary character. He's just, someone who's there, but he doesn't do much to move the plot. That's just not his role. He's just chilling most of the time.
Yeah.
Growing tomatoes to make his ketchup.
Imagine that's all he's ever wanted. He just wants to grow.
I mean, he obviously doesn't want to deal with the sheep, Like, he's like, this isn't what I didn't want to work with animals. No, he just wants his ketchup.
Yeah, and since the man who provided his ketchup is now after Ellie, time to grow them himself.
Isn't that a metaphor for moving on in a relationship?
Dang. I don't need your ketchup anymore. I'll make my own.
That's gonna stick.
Okay, let's move on to Lex. So he tries to drum up support to drive out Queen Bee Ebony, but fails to get any from the rest of the tribe. With Celine pointing out there that having Lex back in charge wouldn't be any better. So yeah, panel, what do you think about the Morats' overall perception of Lex at the moment, and just how much they're willing to put up with Ebony because of Bray?
It makes sense. You know what I mean? It makes sense. Remember, everything Lex has done to these guys, everything they've seen out of Lex, from the moment they met him, regardless of how we can see sometimes Lex actually is trying to do the right thing, it doesn't change his perception from other people and how he's treated them and how they feel. And that for them, Lex has never proven to care or to do. He's had opportunities where he could have. He could have put their safety above his. But for them, they're just not seeing that. They don't see any proof of Lex ever really doing anything to protect them or keep them safe or giving a damn about any of them, or, thinking of anyone other than himself. They just have too many examples of Lex being a selfish prick who didn't care about anybody and willing to throw anybody under the bus. So, yeah, I completely understand where that's the whole point. They're telling Lex, you were so bad of a friend and a tribe mate and a guy who was supposed to handle security that we would rather put up with the evil witch of the West than give you another shot. Like, that's how we feel about you.
Yeah, and they're blaming him right now for Trudy being gone.
Mm-hmm.
They're 100% blaming him.
I have to say, Alice sums it up nicely, though, when Lex mentions that he's trying to get rid of someone no one likes, and she just goes, great, so disappear then.
Dang, I was like, man, Alice. That hurt me.
Well done.
Like, I could feel that burn all the way over here 20 years later.
He set himself up for it.
He did too. I really don't know what he was expecting. Honestly, like he set himself up for embarrassment, and I think that really is just the start to his embarrassment this season.
Yeah, because at this point he really thought that they would side with him.
Her, but they it's not that they hate him. I don't even think they really hate him. I just think that he's not worth their time anymore. Which is sad, and we just see this now. It's just going to spiral from here with Lex.
That might actually be worse, that they don't hate him. They literally just don't have any energy for him. Like, that's actually worse. Like, you don't even inspire it.
Because they didn't even care about the vote that was happening. They were just like, we're okay, this is not going to happen, but fine. Like, whatever. And it was kind of sad to see. Because it's like they just kind of lost every bit of any type of faith that they had that maybe he was gonna be a better person. Yeah.
There's just no use to Lex.
Exactly, and you see it. They're like, you're useless. We have Ebony, taking care of security. We have Bray leading the tribe. Like, we don't need you, Lex.
Yeah, they might not like Ebony, but at least he's productive.
Exactly.
She's doing her
and
job.
Lex never did his.
And you don't have to like her because he never did his. And you add that on top of how he treated everybody. And like you guys said, many of them blame him for the fact they didn't get Trudy back. Not saying that's fair, but that's how they feel.
Because I do think that he was trying to help in that situation. He really thought, if I can get down there and release their boat, there's no way they can leave. Like, he was trying to help, but it was just a very poor decision.
And again, you have to blame Ebony and Danny for that. They're the ones who propagated that narrative when they got back. But I don't feel bad for Lex. Because it's like, you did this to yourself over and over again. How you treat people. This is just karma coming back to you tenfold. What you put out in the world, and this is what's coming back to you. Nobody is on your side. And he seems genuinely shocked that no one's on his side, because he lacks that self-awareness to realize just how poisonous his personality is and how it affects people. Because the way Lex sees it is, sure, I'm a jerk sometimes, but I'm nice sometimes, aren't I? Don't you like when I'm nice? And he doesn't get that being nice every once in a blue moon to someone doesn't make up for how awful you make them feel on a daily basis. You can treat someone like garbage and say sorry once, but that doesn't make it all go away. And a lot of people don't realize that. They really do not they don't see just how toxic they are and how much people don't like their energy. So they're shocked when they're in a moment like this with Lex, where he has no choice but to have a mirror held up to his face, where he realizes nobody here actually likes me. Nobody has any faith in me. Nobody wants me around. Oh, what a wake-up call this is for Lex. And he's going to go right off the precipice at this realization.
This is that, the edge of the cliff for him. And he's going to free fall from here. And that, for me personally, it kind of sucks to see, because you hope so badly that he's going to get it together and he's going to prove everybody wrong and he's going to be this bad boy character that eventually, becomes the hero or whatever. But it just doesn't happen.
Okay, we then cut to a scene with Ryan and Celine together where he explains that he can't give up on Lex, telling her about their time together in boot camp before all the adults died. Panel, what was your overall reaction to the boot camp flashback?
I don't think it did Lex any favors. Maybe it was meant to show the side. I don't know. It just kind of showed everybody the same side that we already see. He's always been this little, can't say it, but not a nice
troublemaker.
Yes. He's a little crap of a child, like he was never, he always talked back and he didn't handle authority well. And the fact that Ryan handles that he needs to be his protector, like he needs to be the one that makes sure that he's either in the fray with Lex or he's getting him out of it. And for him to still feel like he needs to do that even now after everything. Oh, I love Ryan. And I don't think that flashback did any favors to show us a different side, or even why Lex is the way that he is. I was hoping that's what we'd get, but there's no indication as to why he ended up the way that he is now. He just has always been a turd, Yeah.
It's rather weird because you expect it to show you like why Lex is the way he is, but instead it almost kind of shows you why Ryan has to protect him. That's
what it is, It's absolutely, and that's why for Celine to be so understanding really didn't make sense to me, because she should have been like, he doesn't deserve you to continue. He's done this and he's done this and he's done this to you. He has to fall and he has to bring himself back up, right? Like, that's what Celine should have said. She shouldn't have been like, Ryan, I had no idea, right? But she's enabled him continue to be Lex's, I don't know how to put it, like all guy, if you will. He's the one who picks up the pieces.
I didn't like this flashback because it doesn't make sense for what Ryan is saying. Like you said, he's speaking to Celine, like what he's about to tell her is going to explain the dynamic between he and Lex why he feels devoted to Lex and why Lex is the way he is. That is what he says to Celine, okay? So that's what you're expecting going to the flashback. Now, on its own, the flashback's not bad, but it doesn't answer the questions that Ryan just set up for us. It does not tell us why Ryan feels like he's got to protect Lex. I'm still not getting it. Okay, so you're just saying that Ryan is naturally nurturing and would take care of any self-destructive lout he came across? Like, it didn't even have to be Lex? Like, he says Lex always looked out for me, but I don't see that happening in this flashback. I don't see a moment where these boys connect, where it's just like, Ryan says, that's it, I'm going to be there with you because of what you've done for me. Lex does nothing for Ryan in this flashback.
Aside from that one moment where he tells Ryan to go after.
And that's
it. That's it.
I'm like, that hardly counts as a moment that's like, I'll be grateful to you the rest of my life or whatever. So I think it's a poor flashback for that. And like you guys said, it doesn't tell me anything more about Lex than I already knew. I knew he was self-destructive. I knew he was a sexual predator. I knew he was abused by authority figures. So what was the point of this? I learned nothing. I learned more about Ma'am than I did about Lex. Yeah. I learned more about the corrupt authorities going on during this time than I did about Lex. I learned nothing about Ryan. He's just in the background of his own flashback.
Right.
I'm like, like you said, at the end, when Celine's like, wow, I had no idea. And it's just like, what did you learn, Celine? That would make you so sympathetic. Other than the army was really bad to underage boys.
Right.
Like, what did you learn?
Like, are we supposed to feel bad now because Lex was molested, right? Is that what it is? That's what I'm wondering. Because that's the only thing that I can take from it. Is that he was abused by, sexually abused by an authority figure, and now we're meant to understand him more.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's not even the reason. Granted, you're right. That's messed up. But I feel like they gloss over the fact
and they made it.
He was
kind of made
assaulted.
A joke in a sense, like she did this to him, and she made it his fault, and then he ends up in trouble in the end, and it's funny.
Mm-hmm. They don't even treat the sexual assault like it traumatized Lex. It was more like, he's just the kind of guy who'd get into that situation, and like. What are you trying?
And Ryan ends up hurt, getting punished in the end for it.
But I do think, since Ryan's the one telling this, it's seen from Ryan's point of view, where he first says, "Oh no, but there's nothing on Lex's boot, so there's nothing. He didn't do anything," and then just takes it all as Ma'am just taking everything out on Lex. He sees Lex as the innocent, even though Lex wasn't.
Again, that still doesn't answer any real questions for who Lex is or why Ryan feels so devoted to him. Again, it feels like, well, okay, so there's nothing special about Lex and Ryan. Ryan would have done this for anybody that he just happened to come across who was having a rough day, and he would have swooped in and become their wingman with no provocation. And I kind of wonder if they're trying to tap into the universal connectivity that does happen to servicemen and servicewomen. I have a lot of military people in my family, and there's something they usually will all say, and my boyfriend as well, that when they meet each other, they don't have to know much about each other, and all they have to know is where each other served, and there's a sudden connection because they know they've all shared something that us civilians will never understand, But I don't think they're doing a good job of that either, if that's what they're going for. So I'm like, this is not a great flashback. And I actually was more disappointed by it today because I think I remembered it as showing me more, and then I thought today, I was like, oh, this is like 5 minutes of nothing I needed to see.
Like, and the other thing that we get from this, or what I can get from this, the only other thing is, okay, so Lex gets himself into all these situations, gets himself into trouble, and then Ryan takes the fall, and he always has. That's how he feels like he's helping Lex by either getting into trouble with him or, being the one who takes, the brunt of it. Like, that's how he feels like he helps him.
And again, I'm fine with that, but I don't even know why Ryan wants to help this particular person.
Me neither.
They didn't explain it to me. I'm like, you haven't given me a reason for why Ryan feels this devotion to him, other than apparently he'd feel this devotion to any self-destructive person he met, I guess. Which, what does that say about his relationship with
Did he not
Celine?
like her man picking on Lex in the beginning? He couldn't take it because he had been picked on so much, so he felt like he needed to protect him. Like, we just need to know these things, and we didn't get any of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that would make sense, but
So as flashbacks
But we
go,
needed more.
like,
Yeah.
you kind of wasted this flashback
Oh, yeah.
completely.
I will say this one thing about this flashback. They did a great job in the casting of Ma'am.
yes, love her.
I mean, she can just pull this off with just, making it believable.
Yeah. I will say I didn't like Ryan attacking the lady at the end.
Mm-mm.
That kind of, I was like, ooh, I didn't care for that one too much,
He actually responds the same way you see him respond later in next
Yes.
season.
Yes, he does, but it's like
That's exactly what flashed in my mind when I
yeah,
saw that.
me too. It just
Yeah.
I think it was different for me because I thought about it. I'm like, that's a woman. He just grabbed a woman by her hair and pulled her over that table, and so it kind of shows that he's just he's capable of a little bit more than
Than what they show.
yes, and what we think sometimes.
Well, maybe they were trying to comment on the egalitarian between men and women, that these women are being abusive to underage boys in their care. So at this moment, they have lost the privilege of being treated like ladies as from a gentleman. Because in the end, the boys are the ones who are truly the victims.
Right. Yes.
These are children, even if Lex is a dick, he's a child and he's in your care. You know what I mean? And you sexually abused him, and that's just glossed over, So I don't really care that Ryan attacked a woman, because I'm just like, a woman raped a boy. I really don't care.
Yeah, when you say that, and you see that kissy face that she gives him, and Ryan sees it, and he realizes that they do not care. They don't care about them or about what has happened. He loses it.
As far as Ryan knows, he's attacking Lex's rapist. So if anything, it just tells us that Ryan treats all sexual assault the same, no matter who the victim is or the assaulter. Like, it is not okay to do that to somebody.
It's weird. Like, was it needed in this? It feels weird that it was put into this flashback.
I don't know, and that's why I'm saying if we're trying to feel sympathetic, if they want us to feel sympathetic to Lex because this has happened to him, and this is why he has become the way that he is now, and so be it. Then fine, that it makes sense, I guess. But we don't get that clarification. It's so random and out there that it's kind of not. I don't know. It seems out of place a little bit. Yeah. If they were to clarify it,
like, we don't see him being destructive. We don't see him like bullying or being bullied, really, apart from this sexual assault.
No. There's a moment where she just keeps telling him that he's trash.
Yeah.
That's it. Actually, for me, it connected with the moment between Bray and Lex, where Bray is forcing him to say that he's trash.
I'm sorry. For me, I personally just feel like this is a cheap way to try and garner sympathy points for Lex. And I'm sorry, it doesn't work for me. You can't show me a character being absolute garbage to everyone and just treating everybody like there's something under his boot or her boot, and then show me one bad thing that happened to him and think that makes it all go away. Like, I'm gonna be like, oh, well, that's fine then. It's okay that you did all of these horrible things and you have such a horrible outlook and the way you treat everybody because this bad thing happened to you. All is forgiven. This is a lazy way to garner sympathy for Lex. It doesn't work for me. I'm sorry, this is not enough. I already knew bad things happened to Lex. So, sorry, like, that doesn't excuse anything he did.
I would have liked to have seen something more from like him in school or his parents or something that would have given us an indication as to why he was such brat, I guess.
And I don't even need a reason for why Lex is the way he is. I can already infer he's an abused child. I don't need to see one incident of his father doing something horrible to him to understand. I get that. I do need to understand why Ryan is so devoted to him. You know what I mean? I need to know. That is what I need the answer for. Ryan cannot give up on him, no matter what Lex does to people and the people that Ryan loves. That's the only thing you needed to answer, and you didn't even give me that. So you wasted your time and mine, Flashback. But the boys look cute in their uniforms.
Also, the uniforms, they mean something. They had the barcodes again. They all mean something. They must have gotten these uniforms when they started sending people to boot camp, and to the countryside, and so it.
I think that might have been how they were divided, what type of group they were put in.
Yep, Lex and Ryan, conscription to the army, right? Like that's where they go. So I'm really curious to know what the other ones mean.
Ryan, why couldn't you even tell me why you got conscripted to the army? What's up with that?
All right, what'd you do, bud? What'd you do? Were you an older man, a big fella, a little strong there? Like
maybe he had an outburst like he has in the end.
That's true, because
at school,
I just feel like if you're gonna take the time to give me a flashback, it shouldn't raise more questions than it answers. You could have just had a conversation with Celine. If this is how sparse this flashback is, it doesn't give me anything I really needed, anything I was desperately wanting to see, then, dude, you could have saved the budget and just filmed a good conversation between he and Celine. Because, again, this flashback and their conversation do not feel like they're talking about the same thing we just saw. If he had told me this, like, oh, I met Lex in the military and they were terrible to us. Lex wasn't any different than he is now, but I don't know, I just kind of felt responsible for him, and then something happened to him. I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, now I understand everything. I would just be like, yeah, but he's not your responsibility, Ryan. Like, I still don't get it. That's how I would respond. I still don't get why you feel like you have to take care of him if he told me this story. So I'm almost like, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. But whatever, this is a cheap shot, so, people will feel sorry for Lex. And it works for people. Just doesn't work for me, because I recognize this trick. And I'm like, nah, as a writer, you guys could have done way better to make me care about this character, and you're taking a cheap shot to make up for all the horrible things he's done. Granted, they put more effort into this, at least. With Jay, they're just like, let's just film you in a dark room holding a body. That's all we're doing.
Oh, boy.
But yeah, it's just a cheap way to get sympathy points for a character who has been absolute garbage to everyone, and say this is the reason why, and you should forgive them for how they've treated everybody because something bad happened to them. And I'm like, get out of my face with that.
And how he's going to treat people in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad to see Celine say, oh, I understand now, because now she's going to show more sympathy towards Lex, and then so
Mm-hmm.
But maybe, maybe I want to give the writer some credit. Okay, maybe that's the point. Maybe this is the story of an enabler with an abuser. Ryan here is feeling sorry for his friend, but he can't even give us a good reason why he feels such a devotion to Lex. We see that. He doesn't give a good reason, but his girlfriend, who loves him, is trying to be supportive. So she's like, okay, it obviously means something to Ryan to try and take care of Lex. So maybe I can make life easier on him by trying myself. I'm going to reach out and try to take care of Lex. And then we see what happens from that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the lesson.
Maybe, and
maybe there's a point to it.
And then Ryan, reaches that break. It's
You can't enable abusers. You can't just be like, oh, bad things happen to them, so that's okay to let them do what they do because it backfires. Maybe that's what they were doing.
Okay.
Right. That's me just looking for an inkling.
I see you.
The writers may have known what they were doing. I see. You know what I'm saying? You see me. Maybe it was just really too subtle. Maybe just hidden in there.
Gotta watch it 5 or 6 times to really get it.
Only say that, Danny, because you believe people should be bound by rules. I can see it in your aura, but that is not what I believe.
Oh, God!
Danny, take it easy.
She's gonna give our future away! Can't you just see that your ideas are stupid and dangerous?
If you want to give away the formula, I can't stop you. But there will be a price. If you do, you'll no longer be a part of this tribe.
Okay, so that leads us to our final thoughts of the episode. So Tai-San reveals that she wants to teach travelers how to make the antidote so that it can spread beyond their region, which puts her in direct conflict with Ebony, Danny, and Bray. First question, panel. How do you think that this plan sits with Tai-San's original stance of not revealing the formula to anybody?
I think she's realized her plan for having any bit of control is now in jeopardy because Ebony is now the co-leader. So she's like, okay, what can I do? It's not too drastic, not releasing it to everybody in the city, right? Just the travelers. To me, it's not a bad idea.
To me, it felt like she just wanted to
I
undermine
know, and that's
Ebony.
what I'm saying. Like, I feel like it is that, but to me, it's not a bad idea. But in her mind, it definitely is. Well, Ebony has control now. What can I do? Get under her skin,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
There's definitely a lot of that going on. If you'll notice how the episode opens, nobody's really doing what Ebony wants them to do. It's their form of rebellion against her.
Mm-hmm.
We've already seen how Tai-San's acted about that lab room. We've seen her throw a tantrum, pitch a fit, scream at Alice because she left the room for a minute,
Mm-hmm.
even though she left it locked, on and on. So you're going to tell me this same person is going to be like, I'll leave the lab door open because the antidote is free.
Yeah.
She's just doing this to get back at Ebony.
Mm-hmm.
She is rebelling against. She was not on board with Ebony being joint leader, and everybody's kind of doing that. Everyone's sort of just. It's a form of subtle rebellion. It's like a sit-in, or taking a knee during the national anthem. Like, I'm not gonna violently protest, but I want you to know I'm not on board with you. But I also think, because I think you both have a point. Like, I think Sabine, what she's saying that, this is about Tai-San being antagonistic toward Ebony, and how can I undermine her? But I also think Maggie has a point where you guys already know that my point of view about Tai-San was that she honestly wasn't like trying to gain a throne when she kept the formula to herself. Yes, she wanted to influence people to live the way she thinks they should live, but she wasn't going to make a book of law and say, follow these rules to be me, all that jazz. And I do think she's regretting. She thought she could influence the Mallrats to do what she thought was right. That's why she kept the antidote to herself, and she was just like, I'm not going to give it to anybody. And she really thought she could lead them down her path, whatever, of doing this the right way. And she's reached a fork where she realizes, I can't. There are too many people who want to use this for power. I thought I could. She's already had to battle Danny. If it was just Bray and the rest of the Mallrats, she could handle it. But you got Danny, you got Ebony, and now she's reached that point where it's like, I should have just given this away to everybody. This is her last threat. You know what I mean? I will not give in to this. Where you're going, Bray. I'm trying to tell you, I'm not going down this path with you. I trusted you, and you're using this the wrong way. I'll give it away before I let you do that. And then he threatens to take away her home. And I'm like, see, Tai-San, I told you were going to regret your hubris, thinking you could handle this and make this decision for everyone. You should have just let it go. You should have never burnt that formula. Ever.
Yeah.
Because now your tribe has this power. They are not going to let it go. And you played a part in that, and so.
Yeah, and it goes against her power corrupts idea.
What do you mean?
Well, she kept saying that power corrupts, so why did she want to have the power?
Because she felt like she couldn't be corrupted.
I mean, because yeah, but I mean...
Yeah, I don't think she saw what she was doing as what everyone else was doing. But it does prove her power corrupts, because look how it's corrupted. The way she sees it, it's corrupted her friends.
That's what I was trying to say.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, sweetie. I thought you said it didn't prove her power corrupts.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
it absolutely does.
though.
And she's seeing it, And it may not have corrupted her. I still feel like it did a little bit. Like, I still feel like she definitely enjoyed having that over everybody's heads. Because you see how she reacts when Ebony tells her, no, we're not going to go get your plants. Sorry, bud. Like, you can get someone else to do that, And you see how she reacts to that. She doesn't really care for the fact that Ebony's like, oh, And she's like, why are you telling me no? So then she starts to suspect, And I don't blame her for suspecting, but I feel like it was a little quick. I don't know. It was a little fast.
If anything, whatever it is, it's a lesson in hubris, and Tai-San thought, I can influence all these people to do things the way I think it should be done. So she made a unilateral choice, and these are the ripple effects. And the Mallrats have done the thing, and here we are, becoming a police state, trying to hang on to this power by any means necessary. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. Our heroes are becoming more and more far removed from the people they originally started as. And we are so far removed from their original intention with this antidote now, that they don't even recognize themselves. And none of them know how to deal with this change, which it just further compounds. I'm convinced they're the bad guys. You know what I mean? Like, everything we see with them, they're being corrupted and more corrupted by their choices, and it becoming a snowball effect. They can't pull the beast back in now. They have more and more to lose, and it becomes scarier and scarier thinking about losing it. And I'm like, I saw this from the start, you idiots.
Can we talk about Bray and Danny's scene for a second? When Bray is playing basketball, and Danny all but like jumps down his throat when he mentions her dad. Like, he's so sad.
I so hate that scene.
Sad, and forlorn, and he's like, "I miss my dad. Do you miss yours?" And she's just like, "No." Like, it's another like
I buried my dad.
Like,
nobody should ask about my past.
And my boyfriend was like, "Oh my God, her parents must have been awful." And I'm like, you don't know. You have no clue what's about to happen. Thank God, But like, it was just like, they hit her. Did they, And it was just, I felt bad for Bray for just a second because I'm like, he just wanted to miss his dad, and she's like, "Nah, son, you can't do that. Like, we don't do that here."
It's moments like this. Okay, Bray is playing basketball. For a moment, Bray is doing something fun. He's letting loose and he's enjoying himself. And it's poignant because we now know he connects this with his past. He hasn't done this ever. We never see Bray having fun. So to see him take it upon himself to just play basketball, reminisce, about his life. And then when he sees Danny, he shares that with her. I used to do this. I'd play out in the street. I had a basketball team. I played with my dad. Man, I miss him. He's just allowing himself a moment. And her reaction convinces me more than anything else. Bray didn't fall in love with Danny. He fell in love with the person who reminded him the most of Amber. Because there is nothing about this girl that you can convince me Bray fell in love with. This is the way she reacts to you when you share a vulnerable moment with her. When you're saying, "I miss my father, this basketball and just doing this and to be 17 again," or whatever. And her reaction isn't to be like, "I just don't like to think about it," or whatever. It's to jump down his throat and emotionally pistol whip him for having the nerve to share this with her and ask a question. And I'm like,
she instantly adds that no one should ask questions about her dad.
Exactly. Like, literally all she had to say was, like you said, "I don't like to think about it."
Right, it just hurts. I don't like to talk about it. And Bray would have respected that. Like, I get that. But no, I'm like, what is your... No, Danny, you're not a nice person. Not. I'm sorry that your dad made I'm sorry your dad made the virus. I'm sorry you feel responsible for it. You're not a nice person. I'm just making that clear. And I don't believe you that you want to help people. You want to absolve yourself. That is it. Because you aren't nice to anyone, Danny. You're a dick. For no good reason.
And when you think, "Oh, she's being nice," she's actually being nice for a change. Switch flips just like that, and she's back to being this crazy person. Like, it literally seems like she goes crazy for a second. She loses her mind, and she can't think about anything else but protecting her secret. And Bray doesn't know anything about your secret. You don't have to be such a turd.
Understand? I could give her a pass if Bray out of nowhere just like, "Hey, Danny, do you remember your dad? You want to tell me about him?" Like, I'd understand her being like, "Where do you get off asking me about my past, buddy? You know what I mean? Get out of my face." But Bray doesn't do that. He shares something with her about himself first, and then just admits how he's feeling and asks if she feels the same way. And the way she snaps at him is so uncalled for. It's right up there with, "Where did you get that brain?"
It's just so different from the scene we had last season with Bray and Amber.
Yeah.
With the ring and the keys. Them talking about, "Okay, yeah, this ring, my dad gave it to me," all that. That's such a different vibe from this show.
It absolutely is. And that's why it's like you question, how did it happen? How did they actually end up? Because I can't remember for the life of me. And maybe it's because I don't like it. I just kind of, tuned it out or whatever. But at this point, I'm like, how does he like her?
Exactly. They don't actually form a relationship. It's just Bray projecting his loss onto Danny. That's all that happens.
He needed a rebound.
Danny does nothing to, convey a sense of reciprocity. She does nothing that would convince me that Bray would fall for her. I'm just saying that. No. I'm not blaming Ella or whatever, but just no. And that's why this just doesn't work. I'm sorry. It doesn't work.
She's just filling a void.
She is, and you see it, how easily
filling
he
a
is with Ebony later on in this season, and then how easily he changes things at the beginning of season. What is it, 3?
Yeah.
How it just You're right. Annie is just filler at this point. She's just going, to fill his time. And right now, he doesn't really need her to fill his time, so she's annoyed.
He's just using her to keep away the time from having to think about Amber constantly.
But it's important to know he's not doing that consciously.
No, he's not.
I don't think Bray realizes at all why he's drawn to Annie and why he is pulled towards her.
Yeah.
If you told Bray, you do realize that the reason you like her is because she reminds you of Amber, he'd go into denial. He'd be like, no, I'd never do that. He doesn't even realize what he's doing, that he's just put her in Amber's space and, superimposed Amber's face on top of hers. And it's just all he sees are the things that remind him of Amber and completely ignores all of the other warning signs that there's something seriously wrong with Danny. This is not normal, these reactions that she's having. Those reactions come from a hormonal imbalance. Okay? When was the last time we saw someone react like this on the reg? Wasn't it right after someone gave birth?
Hey, he had to deal with Trudy for 9 months before that.
And maybe it's normal. I don't know. Maybe he thinks women act this way. Ebony's always been, a certain way as well. Like he likes strong women.
And when you compare this to a scene where, again, we've had people who don't want to talk about their past. And there is a scene, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a scene where Amber makes it clear she doesn't want to talk about her past. That it's just sad. Why would you do that? I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But even in that scene, she makes it clear, but in a gentle way. No, I don't want to talk about that. I don't enjoy talking about my past.
Right.
I barely know you, and I don't want to share that with you. But she's not biting anyone's head off,
Exactly.
She just quietly tells somebody that, no, I don't want to share that with you because I don't like thinking about it. You know what I mean? Because I think he says the same thing to her where, do you ever think about your parents? And she's just like, no, I don't want to think about that, But she doesn't stab him metaphorically for having the nerve to say that to her. And I'm like, Danny, what is the matter with you? I'm sorry, everything I'm going to find out about you doesn't justify all of this behavior. It just doesn't.
No, it doesn't. And
at least a bit of it, though. I mean, not the way, it explains it. It doesn't justify it, but it explains it. Because she does have something to hide to do with her past, her parents.
I was going to say, do you think this is just the writers just needing to drop another hint, but they couldn't make it subtle for obviously the age of the audience. They just had to make it heavy-handed.
Oh yeah, this big red flag. Danny's hiding something.
Yeah, she's definitely hiding something about her parents or her dad. For sure. That's definitely the first, I think, real big hint that we get that it's about her father.
I wish they'd done it differently, but it's because it just makes Danny look so evil and terrible.
It makes her look insane. Like I said, I don't like saying it, but it makes her look she's gone mad. For a moment, something in her head flips and...
If someone responded that way to me, I would just leave the room. I would...
Yeah, and Bray's just like, okay.
I would back out, too, because I'm keeping my eye on you. I'm like, you are unhinged. You do this too often for me to... There's something broken. And I've been here before. And you're not even pregnant. I don't know what's wrong with you. Just taking my ball and I'm going home. So sorry to disrupt you. You invaded my space.
Right.
I wonder if that's why he gets over her so quickly later on.
He was like, oh, I get it now. Once he's with Amber again, he realized, oh, I understand. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Hindsight's 2020.
Their problem now.
Let her annoy Jaffa.
Oh, I feel kind of bad. Just a little
That's
bit.
actually quite a cruel punishment for the Chosen. You took her, you keep her. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh boy. Let her write you guys some new laws. Maybe that's what happened. She rewrote everything.
I still say she went into the technos. Oh, can you imagine her and Jay together?
I've already said that she deserves better than Jay, but I would not mind seeing Jay punished by Danny.
Right.
Give him hell, Danny. I don't have any strong opinions about this episode. I thought I would. I was like, ooh, another flashback. And then it was very underwhelming. It's not a bad episode. I want that clear. Not bad. It does the job. But I just didn't have any strong emotions about it either way.
Yeah. That's why I was excited too when I first saw the flashback. I'm like, oh, that's right. It's another one. And then I was like, oh, okay, that happened.
Yeah. All the budget went into the school flashback.
It did.
That's the one they were passionate about.
Yes, we know now.
And we don't get a proper one until what? Season 5? That's
Huh?
Yeah, but no. We don't talk about that flashback. Nuh-uh.
Well, would you rather talk about the season 3 flashback?
Oh, dear Siege.
La 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 la, can't hear it.
Oh yeah, just briefly, just to wrap up. What did you make of Bray's threat to Tai San that he'd kick her out?
I think he's desperate at this point. Like desperation. Because he threatened to kill Ebony.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like every threat that's coming out of his mouth now is like hardcore, and he's like, "This is
Where is this desperation coming from at this point?"
He's afraid Ebony's going to tell on him, and they won't like him anymore.
Yes, he's afraid that Ebony is going to tell them what he did, and they're going to turn on him. He's worried about people liking him, like Sabine said.
On one hand, Bray doesn't have any right to be making threats. Also, nobody should take a single threat he makes seriously. He's not. I would be like, go ahead. Are you gonna throw me out? I'm gonna tell everybody why you plan on throwing me out or whatever. I wouldn't care. Like, go ahead, Bray. What's the worst you can do? But I understand that's not Tai San. She doesn't have the omnipresence that I do. I get that. But I do think, yeah, it's so hard for Bray to have to look in that mirror and realize that he may be unlikable and that he may be the problem. And he, like, even if he can admit it to himself, he doesn't want anybody else to see it. And I get it. I get that. He was the oldest child. He was supposed to be the good boy. He was supposed to do everything right. And some of us with oldest child syndrome have that problem. We become obsessed with doing everything right all the time. And we cannot bear the idea of messing up. But even more so is anybody else knowing we messed up. So we put on airs that we have it under control, even though we don't, because there's this obsession with holding up that appearance. I'm supposed to have it under control. So you take Bray with his hero complex and having been the oldest child, he was supposed to do everything right. And now he's a leader and he has all these people who trust him and care about him and expect him to do it. He can't just admit, I can't do this and I screwed up, and so yeah, I can see why he would threaten Tai San just out of fear. Like, no, I can't let anyone to know. He doesn't want her to know either. It's easier to kick her out than for her to find out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Amber believed in him. Amber believed that he could do this, and now he's realizing he can't do it, and maybe she was wrong, and he's let her down. And
oh my gosh, and she was one of the people he believed in.
Ebony didn't even make like a threat to him at this point. I don't get it.
No. But I think Bray realized that Tai San figured it out.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's realized that, but I think he's willing to say anything to scare her into not doing what she'll do, because then she will find out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if she says, oh, I'm giving out the antidote formula to everyone, he sees that and goes, oh, okay, so she still doesn't know that someone else knows. But if she starts to give it out, that'll push Ebony to act. And then Tai San will find out what I've done. And not only Tai San, but everybody who trusts and believes in me will find out. So I'm going to say the scariest thing I can to her in the hopes that it'll work.
Right,
Call her mine.
Yeah, whereas Tai San's saying what she can to try to find out if he did give Ebony the antidote.
I do think she's putting out feelers. Like, she's suspicious. Because when she mentioned it to, like, Ebony, she's looking at Ebony and she's like, maybe I'll even share it with you. And Ebony didn't seem to take the bait. This silence tells me how underwhelming this episode was. Everyone just sitting there going, yep, that happened.
Yeah, this is how I feel.
I know. I'm looking at that last question and I'm like, what do I think is happening with the virus elsewhere? And I'm like, it's probably mutating and killing people, and now it's not anymore. And
I don't want to think about that last question because it doesn't even, in the scope of the tribe, it doesn't. Yeah, I don't want to think about it. It's too much to go.
I mean, the most we ever get outside of the city is what, a little town over.
Mm-hmm.
What we learned, actually, that's what's disturbing. All of season 2 is about this virus and saving lives. And then the power that comes with that, responsibility that comes with all of this stuff that comes with all the baggage, right? And then later we're going to find out that there are swaths of communities where people survived the resurrection of the virus with no problem. They don't even talk as though the virus came back. They don't ever talk about finding their own version of the antidote somewhere in another city. Apparently this only happened here, and then it makes it feel like, wow, none of this was actually all that necessary.
Right.
Because we meet way too many people after this who will never mention, oh yeah, that second wave of the virus, that really messed things up for me, or I lost half of my... Just nothing. It's like, how did this not affect anybody else ever?
Yeah.
How is it possible? Even the technos never mention the second wave of the virus, which makes zero sense to me since you set up Ram as somebody who's literally got a germ phobia. You know, like, that would have been a comment. That would have something we would have known, like, about them. And, you know, how they handled that. And it never comes up again. It's like the second wave never happened to anybody else except in our little mysterious city.
It does feel like that, because even at the end of season 1, where they're headed towards Eagle Mountain, you have these kids setting up barricades because that second wave is just over there, and we don't want to get you to get past these barriers and spread it out.
It's just silly.
And then
Pothole.
And then there were people like Sasha who traveled in and out of the city, spreading it everywhere.
Everywhere. Plague bringer.
What if Sasha was the one who brought it to the city? He's a carrier, man.
He is the plague bringer forever. Now that is official. It's canon.
It matches the Pied Piper rat motif.
Yep.
That's where it came from.
We're not blaming Sasha for spreading the virus.
We are blaming
I
Sasha.
think it would be funny. Give him something to do. I love the idea of him frolicking in the wilderness, spreading apple seeds and flowers and plague.
Plague.
And that's why he left again.
Okay, what does that tell you? That this episode was so uninspiring that we devolved into the weirdest fanfiction ever.
And on that cheery note, that brings Series 2, Episode 18 to a close. Thank you very much to the panel. And if you'd like to take part in a future episode of the podcast, you can fill out the form over on our website, thetribe.co.uk, or send us a message over on our Facebook page. So we'll see you next time for Episode 19. Until then, bye.
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 Bye.